president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East. We more and more are not wanting to be the policemen of the world. I will expel the warmongers from our national security state. We're going to end these endless wars, endless wars. They're drafting you to go and fight in some country that I've never heard. They said, you will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. How is that an example of
Now, there is one phrase that I want to focus on from that clip, and that is, we're going to expel the warmongers from our national security state. I think that's what he said. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how this could be 4D chess, but I'm not saying that it is. Okay, I want to make that clear. I am a anti-war voter, American, and I'm not even buying the pathetic story that they're putting out there. So, as I've said in my previous videos, I'm not the kind of person where you can pile one lie on top of another lie on top of another lie, and I'll just keep giving you the benefit of the doubt. I frankly would prefer to cut my losses when I'm dealing with someone like that, because I honestly trust my instincts, and I believe that when a person has truly changed their ways, let's say someone was a dishonest person, deceitful, lying, cheater, I will know if they have actually changed. They won't have to tell me anything. But as long as they continue to lie to me, then I will know that they're not someone that can be trusted. And so I just withhold my trust. It's that simple. In this particular case, obviously, either he was lying before or he's lying now. And one of the things that really frustrates me about leftists, a lot of whom are, calling out the president right now for lying about the Iran war, like they wouldn't actually call out the proper lies before. They would only make up things and then call that a lie. And now all of a sudden they're demonstrating their ability to see an actual lie, which damages their own credibility, because it's like, are you so trapped in your own ideology that you can't see things for what they are, regardless of who they're coming from? I don't idolize or worship or put my trust in people when it comes to politics. I put my trust and put my allegiance behind particular policies. And I think many of the, at least right-leaning voter base, which is crazy to say at this point, most Americans have overwhelmingly voted for anti-war candidates. They just simply turned out to not be anti-war. Okay. And I would say that's going back at least to Obama. One of the questions that people used to raise about Trump was whether or not he would start World War III. And I myself said Joe Biden broke the entire world during his time in office. Now, it's interesting because suddenly the left cares about inflation and gas prices, but they didn't seem to care about any of that when when Biden was in office. So dishonesty on both sides, I just can't stomach, whether it's the right or the left. I don't believe that ending the two-party system is the answer to that, because I've seen what a mess that is in Europe, and it's no good. But I won't talk about that today. First of all, I want to look at some of the moves that Trump is making. I've already said that I think if you put the country of Israel, every time you hear Trump say Iran as it relates to this war, that you will probably have decoded what he's talking about. And the reason I say that is because, listen, I've been semi-retired for a long time now. I've had a time to do a lot of investigation in what is going on in the world outside of just the United States, something that I didn't so much do. I'm trying to remember when I started. It's probably been more than 10 years. I can't remember exactly, but the world is available through the internet, and it's not about believing everything that I see. It's just about kind of looking at different facts, trusting my instincts, and then seeing how things play out, learning to read patterns and what have you. I was watching a particular show. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Douglas McGregor, who is a former military. Might have been Daniel Davis, who one of those type of people who are formerly from the government. They're now retired, and they do a lot of commentary on current geopolitical events. And they said that actually the government of Iran has never been confirmed to have attacked the United States, or been behind a terrorist attack in the United States. Now, just because you have an individual, I don't even know if we've had an individual Iranian who ever has. But just because you have an individual who does something, like we've got people who are not from Iran that are being alleged to have committed an act in support or in sympathy with Iran, but that they've never attacked the U.S. When Trump talks about them creating these, roadside bombs that killed Americans, well, that wasn't a war. I don't know for sure that they've invented those or that they were responsible for those. All I do know is that Iran is primarily Shia Muslim, and I'm not the expert on the different sects within Islam, but that they're Shia Muslim, and that Shia Muslims in Iraq, they had mostly at the time Sunni and Kurdish Muslims, Kurdish who are trying to build their own state there. And that the resistance to U.S. presence in Iraq was primarily Shia Muslims. And so they were there fighting in the war, the same as we had people from all over the country go to serve with Ukraine in their war. Israel has a lot of dual citizens, so they had people who came from different countries that they're citizens of to serve in the war with the IDF, the war in Gaza. So this is not 100% uncommon that people will volunteer either as contractors. One thing that you'll learn about military people if you talk to a lot of them, because people don't always understand why people will put their life on the line. They're adrenaline junkies. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all, but this is something that they are drawn to do. And let's be honest, we need some of those kind of people in society. You need someone who's willing to put their life on the line. I remember once dating a guy, and he said he saw a child about to drown, but he was there with his own child. And I can't remember how old he was. He was at the beach, and he was a very good swimmer. His son was also a pretty good swimmer because he taught him to swim. And he set his son down, and he said, "You sit right there and don't you dare move, because if you move, I'm going to kill you." And he went and saved the child that was drowning. And he said, he said, "I felt confident that I would be okay." And he's like, "I just couldn't let the kid drown." Now, I don't know whether it was true or not. I'm not there, but I know that's the kind of person that he was. He embraced the protector provider mindset. And so that was just what he did. That was the way he was when I was with him. And that's just kind of how he was. So I'm going to explain how this could be a sort of 4D chess move. The relationship between the U.S. and Israel goes way back, but I think most people in the United States at this point consider this at best to be a very dysfunctional relationship. People who are paying attention understand that it was the same prime minister, Bibi Netanyahu, who has been prime minister not consistently, but the way that their system works, when his party has a majority in parliament, or they can form a majority by coalition with other smaller parties, that he will be the prime minister. So he's been the prime minister off and on for decades. That he was the prime minister that came to the U.S. and testified before our Congress. And by the way, I am against foreign leaders coming to speak to our Congress. If they want to come, like addressing them on the floor, I'm against that. I don't think that should ever be happening. That's the American People's House, and no foreign leader should ever be trying to influence us in that way. I think if they want to influence us, they can talk to the executive. They shouldn't be trying to influence the laws that we're passing. That's, to me, inappropriate. But I digress. It's been a dysfunctional relationship. However, the lobby side, like most lobbyists, people love to signal that American-Israeli alliance pact, I think it is, as being unique in their lobbying. I would say the most unique thing about them is that they're very public about what they're doing. And you can argue about whether or not they are a foreign interest or not. That's for other people to debate. But they're not different than any other lobbyist. They lobby for policies that they want. And that's what lobbyists do. And a lot of times that is against the interests of the American people. That's what lobbyists do. If it wasn't against the interests of the American people, they would come straight to us with their ideas, and it would probably be much more influential, but they're there for specific special interests. And so I don't see AIPAC as being a different lobbying organization than others. You could argue about whether or not they're deceptive in saying that they're American when they're going for Israeli interests. I don't really know, because I don't know what all they do. But it's in the open, so people can have that debate and they can decide whether or not they think it's appropriate. But I don't think that the much bigger problem is that we've got politicians who get a lot of money from them and others, and as a result of that, they support policies that are not in American interest. And that's where I see AIPAC as being no different. So what we have is Trump not sure. I think that we could agree that most Americans have decided that they don't want this relationship anymore. They want a divorce from Israel. They want to, they see them as being the catalyst, and maybe they are, maybe not. I think that Israel is a very small state and probably acting on behalf of globalists in general who like never-ending war. However, the American people have changed their mind. It used to be kind of like Israel is a society that's very much like ours. And so the rest of the Middle East is not really like us. And they felt a kind of kinship based on that. Okay, fine. But they've decided that it's dysfunctional. It's just like a relationship. You're dating someone and then things turn sour. You marry someone and then things turn sour. And now you feel like it's time for you to go your separate ways. Your interests don't align anymore. And I think that Trump understands that America is seeing that, but politically, Trump likes to bring America along with him. So I'm going to talk about some specific moves that he's making that suggest that this might be 4D chess, but I'm not guaranteeing anything. I don't know what's going on. This is just my instincts, my reading of patterns, and a theory of what might be going on. There's Congressman Thomas Massie. He is the American-Israeli alliance PAC public enemy number one. Trump is backing his primary supporter. He's backing his primary challenger in Kentucky. Now, why do I keep calling him Senator? Representative Massie is very popular among his constituents. So backing a primary challenger to one of the more popular members of Congress will finally test the power of this AIPAC, who's also highly backing Representative Massie's primary challenger. If Massie is able to win without that money, he's sending a message to others in the House and Senate who are afraid to take that on. And Trump knows that it gives a sign that his power, Trump himself, his power is limited by people's overriding concerns about this. I've already addressed the war itself and people getting harmed and things like that. And I will make the argument both for a real war. I've already made the argument that I don't know what's really going on because I can tell that a lot of the videos that are coming out are just AI on both sides. There's high censorship and a lot of the videos are not real, so we don't really know what's going on. But I do consider that the number of people who have already died because of this very dysfunctional relationship might make the numbers that are dying now pale in comparison. And that might be true to each of the sort of adversarial parties involved. I've talked about the destruction of the U.S. bases in the Middle East and how that could be a part of the 4D chess. If they're never rebuilt, and in my view, they better not be, they better stay gone forever, that part of that could be testing the American public, not really testing, but testing voters, testing how things outcome, to see whether or not this lobbying group who is very influential can be defeated based on the power of the people and having full knowledge of what's going on. I haven't really covered the Epstein files except to talk about the United States of blackmail. If you haven't seen that video, I believe it was a live stream, but either way, I encourage people to check that out. I think it's videos about this was clearly an influence and compromise operation. So the documents are unambiguous about how close the ties are to, I don't want to say Jewish people, but like Jewish elites. And to me, all elites are the same. I don't see like Jewish elites being separate from any other elites, American elites, British elites, German elites. All of these people are very twisted to me. They only care about power, and the more power they get, the worse things they do. And the worse things they do, the more fear they have of losing their power, because people just may decide to go primal on them. So I see all elites as being the same. Pre-compromised people who have benefited from their depravity and are now afraid that the mob is coming after them. So I don't want to put Jewish elites in a separate category. I think they're all the same. Again, I've said, I believe that Israel is a perfectly constructed Middle East battering ram for globalists. So we've got that. So one part of it is to end the U.S. presence in the Middle East. A second part of it is to make Americans choose. Do they want to keep this relationship or not? And I think America is choosing not. If you include everyone, including the left and the right, ordinary people, this number is, I believe, not close. The number of people who believe that the U.S.-Israel relationship is not good for America. So we've got that. And we've got various tests going on, including the Massey test, including the potential, Trump has not really done the kinds of things that we would expect to dismantle the surveillance state. And one of the things that I have wondered about is whether or not he's using it. I promise you, a lot of these congressmen and senators are compromised by their own staff. And we just had a story come out of a representative in Texas. He's a Republican. I believe his name was Tony Gonzalez. A young woman who was part of his staff, who was married, committed suicide by setting herself on fire. I hope that story's not true, but it looks like it is. There's video of it. And people were quiet about it, but recently text messages were released that he was having an affair with her. Now, if you've got staffers, and I believe that that's an extreme situation right there, but I'm hearing other people come out and say things that I have been actually posting on social media for a while. These people that end up in politics are weak in character. So it's easy for people who are weak in character to become compromised by a beautiful staffer, by a handsome staffer. I think men and women are doing this. We're hearing reports that Mitch McConnell, who is the Senate Republican, is being controlled by his staff. The staffers are very much like the congressional staffers, very much like civil service. I know that James O'Keefe is doing a lot of work on this. He's been talking about it for a long time, but it hasn't come out. I think the stuff that James O'Keefe has been releasing, particularly since he left Project Veritas a few years ago and went off on his own, or was ousted from Project Veritas because they really wanted to put an end to what he was doing. And he went out on his own, that he has people on the inside, staffers that will be whistleblowers that will come out and explain to us why things don't get done. These people, a great number of them are compromised because we have a system that rewards unethical, even immoral, and I would say corrupt behavior. That has to end. I've made other videos about that. So whether or, Trump tried doing it one way in his first term. It is much easier for the people on the side of good to allow people on the side of bad to destroy their self than it is to take them on and destroy them. And in fact, it's less bloody as well, generally speaking, because they will destroy themselves. You can see that they are destroying themselves. But there's a few things that I think need to happen. When people don't play fair, it's very difficult to beat them playing fair. That's obvious. If you have people who cheat, people who take steroids are likely to beat people who don't in sports. People who cheat in business can make a lot of money. Con artists, things of that nature, they can make a lot of money. It's very difficult for a company that's not cheating to beat a company that is cheating. So in any situation, it's very difficult for someone who's playing by the rules to beat someone who's not playing by the rules. But it's kind of like, let's call it, I don't even want to call it political judo, maybe societal judo, to allow people to destroy themselves, to use their own obsessions, corruption against them to make them destroy themselves. And I don't know that that's what's happening, but I hope that's what's happening. And one thing I do know and believe is that it is less bloody and less damaging to allow them to destroy their self than it is to try to take them on head on in an unfair fight. Slowly but surely, we've now got the right and the left on the same side of this war for the most part. You've got a few elites, people whose livelihood depends on them being right. You always have to, I don't like to question people's motives without reason. So there are, commentators and influencers that I've followed for their good takes on things for a long time. But some of them have become obviously dishonest. People who said they supported the anti-war agenda, the United States needs to get out of that business, are now supporting this war, even though there's no end in sight. They don't have any idea on how to win or what the objectives are. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you suddenly supporting this? Maybe because they just don't want to be on the bad side of the president. Nobody should ever be worried about being on the bad side of a politician. Why should you be worried about that? If especially not in America. If we're a self-governing people, politicians should fear us. We should not fear them. So I would question the motives of someone who is afraid of being in opposition to their politicians, their own public servants. And when I say opposition, they're just commentators. They're just commentators. But what you understand is that politicians are worried about the influence of people who have large followings, and they don't like it when people come out against them. It's insane how they respond to their own constituents, telling them, hey, we don't like that. We want this. So I am trying to be optimistic, trying to give a spin, trying to share a little bit about what I see as the possibilities, because let's be honest, we've seen a lot of things that are obviously not real. And it's almost as if we've been primed and prompted to ask questions for the last year. They set us up to ask questions. People don't believe the full story about the attempted assassination of Trump. People certainly don't believe, and for good reason, the official story about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. People do not believe the official story about Epstein, and they were blatantly lying to us. Anyone who's been following these things, and I know that everybody hasn't been, but if you've been following these things, you know that some of the things that they've said have been so absurd that if you know you're not even expected to believe it. And people are upset about it. They're angry about it on social media. They're saying, like, why are you obviously lying to us? What do you mean that Jeffrey Epstein was the only person involved with what he was doing? Well, now we know that's not true as they start to release the documents. I don't think that they've given us everything by even close, but it's enough to know that what they've been saying was lies. We've got names of other high-profile people who are implicated, and I'm not going to say what anyone did or didn't, but they shouldn't be saying it either. But they did say it. They was like, there's no one else involved. Well, clearly other people were involved. And so to what extent saying that they were not involved was obviously a blatant lie. The Epstein video, they were like, you're going to see the entire thing. You're going to see that he killed himself. We didn't see anything on that. So they've been priming us to question everything we see, even if it's on video. And now we're doing it. So I'm taking that lesson learned, that pattern, which has been going on for a couple of years, and I'm applying it to this war. I'm not going to believe everything that I'm seeing, but I'm not going to lend my support to someone who's not telling me the truth. Other people can decide how they want to play along with that. I'm going to take the lesson and just sit back and watch and observe and make my own decisions based on my own instincts of what is the right call to make. And I hope you do as well. This is Marina back with another video. I'm trying to make content that I think you can, that are relevant to the times. So I hope that you will let me know in the comments what you think. Like this video, just like this video. All feedback is appreciated. I'll see you on the next one.